Yes, well, the unemployment, my gosh, you cannot see it as this one perspective. You definitely need that to focus more, in that sense, more on the employer side. I think that we have to focus on that particular even more. You cannot, as a company, use resources from society, which are people, without paying that back. And it's not only the salary of the person, but you have to pay back for that society.
Professor Roland Blanc, professor at Tilburg University and extraordinary professor at Northwest University, recently visited Optentia to share his insights on behaviours of individuals, professionals and employers that are vital to addressing unemployment.
Been researching this topic actually since in the last 25 years almost. So this is a pretty long time, and do we understand it better? I think, well, yes, I think so. In developing effective intervention, especially because if you look at the dominant view on unemployment thus far is an economic perspective. Like, so it's a labor market issue. There is a mismatch between skills and demands and all these kind of things. But I have a different perspective, but it's also because I'm a scientist, I'm a social scientist, I'm a behavioral scientist in that sense. And so this is also the perspective I have. And what about the economy perspective? I would also say, well, I think it's too limited. As if everything is only steered by economic incentives. And I don't think that's the issue. There are much more the other values or other things that are important to steer behavior also from employers.
3 evidence-based elements are required to bridge the gap between the unemployed person and the labour market. Firstly, strengthening the individual through evidence-based interventions and instruments that promote work competencies and job search skills. Next, enhancing inclusive entrepreneurship, and finally, professionals that support the individual and/or the employer in an evidence-based way. To give evidence-based content to these elements, 3 scientific models or theories are used: the self-determination theory, the theory of planned behavior, the capability approach.
The theories that I try to apply or as a fundament to change this actually devastating topic for people and society as well are the theory of planned behavior. So it's a very cognitive approach. And another theory is the self-determination theory, which was also promoted within the Michele Pampili project. And the third is the capability approach. I will and I can. And this is basically, these 2 topics are in the center of the planned behavior theory. But it's not only you will and you can. So there should also be a context in which that provides you the possibility to enhance your motivation and enhance your skills. You will and I can. I will and I can. But I am also being allowed.
These theories combined refer to 3 steps to effectively conduct a specific behaviour to reach out for a specific perspective, such as applying for a job, strengthening inclusive entrepreneurship, or be an evidence-based professional. Firstly, to be motivated to do so. Then having the necessary skills to do so. And finally, to be enabled to do so. Motivation is increased by the value of the perspective, how much you want it, which is based on how much it fulfills basic needs, such as belonging, competence, and autonomy, and beliefs about whether you expect to successfully perform the behavior. Besides motivation, you need specific skills to perform and skills to overcome obstacles, for example, lacking resources, disability. Finally, you need a context that enables you to reach out. The integrative model of behavioral prediction structures the professional support to the individual and the employer. It helps to diagnose what is needed and to what extent interventions are available that focus on specific elements in the model.
From a behavioral perspective, it is still limited. A couple of years ago, I think, if I'm correct, in 2014, there was a meta-analysis conducted by 3 researchers in the States. And they looked at quality studies on job search interventions. They conducted a meta-analysis on quality studies, but also on quasi-experimental and experimental studies. And they found 48 studies. Imagine this issue, 48 studies worldwide in the last 5 decades or something like that. Yeah. So there's a lot to gain and a lot to try to understand better what's going on. Well, the first question is, does it work, job search interventions, to get people to work? Yes. If you look at the people who don't have an intervention and those who did receive this training, there was a 2.67 higher chance of getting a job. So not everybody, but the chance is increasing if you have a job search intervention. They look at the content of the interventions. And they said, well, they have 2 elements. And one is focusing on specific skills on how to apply for a job, to present yourself, to have a CV, etc. But also on particular how to search for a job. But there was also another aspect. They said, well, most of these interventions also have a motivational component. I already mentioned the self-efficacy aspect, but also things like perseverance and etc. Well, the JOBS program is a brief intervention. It's only 5 days or part of the days in a week or within 2 weeks, depends a bit, but it's a focus on a group intervention. And it's harnessing against setbacks, and it's developing skills. It's building on what people already know and strengthen that, because, well, if you demotivate it, you also lose the things you already know or you already can. So you have to kind of activate that. But it's not a panacea for everything. It's in that sense, what we see is that the percentage of people getting a job within a specific amount of time, 6 months, for example, we found that in the Netherlands, is about 30%. So still 70% is still remaining there. So, but you could kind of use it as a first filter. First, a brief, enhancing, empowering program like JOBS. And then for those who need extra, on the same principles, but in a slower pace for those who are still in need for additional support.
The integrative model of behavioral prediction may also be helpful to structure support directed at employers to strengthen inclusive entrepreneurship. The model informs employers who want to reflect on an inclusive labour market and the benefits they may get from it in the long run, as society will change for the better as it becomes more inclusive.
You cannot see it as this one perspective. You definitely need that to focus more in that sense more on the employer side. I think that we have to focus on that particular even more. You cannot, as a company, use resources from society, which are people, without paying that back. And it's not only the salary of the person, but you have to pay back for at society.
3 important questions need to be addressed. Firstly, how do employers value inclusive entrepreneurship? How that can be changed, and how? Secondly, what skills are needed for employers to be more inclusive? And finally, which obstacles to inclusive entrepreneurship do employers encounter?
But I also heard that here, companies are now we cannot find the persons that we need for. How is it possible if you have 60% unemployed people? So what's going on? Well, then I would say to these companies, then you have forgotten 20 years ago to invest in human capital, because that takes the time, and we need to kind of help employers to have not only the short-term perspective of I need people, but you have to have a long-term perspective on developing skills, etc., and so that your innovation of the companies is enhanced and sustained. But that needs, therefore, you need to unite, and you need to have employers with an inclusive perspective and the value of this inclusive perspective. Because, well, if you can and you're motivated and you're able to, but you are not enabled, yes, of course, that part is very is as important as the other two. To come from a jobs program with 30% effectiveness to, for example, 70% perspective, then this has also got to do with the context. And well, okay, we try to find answers from a behavioral perspective and to see, okay, what do these companies need so that we can enable them to be more inclusive.